Welcome to Life's Dirty Little Secrets. I'm Emma Waddington.
And I'm Chris McCurry. And today we are very pleased to have returning to us Dr. Manuela O'Connell. She is an acceptance and commitment therapy therapist and trainer in Buenos Aires, Argentina, where she conducts workshops and seminars in both English and Spanish, bridging psychological science with real-world application. She is the co-author with Robin Walser of the ACT Workbook for Anger, Managing Emotions and Taking Back Your Life with Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. And she's a contributing writer to book The Heart of ACT. And again, with Robin, just this spring, they've come out with another great book, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, Deliberate Practice to Develop and Enhance Skills in ACT. Her work combines therapy with body wisdom, which is today's topic, exploring how listening to our bodies can help us feel more flexible and resilient. And she helps people move beyond just talking about their problems and actually feeling their way through them. She previously appeared on Life's Dirty Little Secrets alongside Dr. Robin Walser for episode 67, Living with Death, where they helped us explore existential responsibility and how ACT helps us meet endings of all kinds with presence and choice. So we are very pleased to welcome her back. Thank you for being here, Manuela.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Emma, and thank you, Chris. I'm so happy to be here again.
Excellent. So what's before us today, and we were talking a little bit before I hit record, was the body and how there's, particularly in Western societies, and we'll get into this more, this split or dichotomy or even conflict between the body and the mind, the head, however we want to describe these things. So tell us about your perspective on this, Manuel, in terms of what's going on with this dichotomy, this split between the body and the mind, cognitions and body, whatever we want to, just however we want to describe it?
Well, for me, it's a very interesting topic since being a psychologist, we usually talk about mental health. Even talking about that is like the rest, where is that embodied in a way? So I think we have in psychology a long-standing tradition of not including that much somatic or other aspects or felt sense or even more physical stuff around mental health. And it became for me an issue because I have a chronic disease. And when I was diagnosed, when I was 19, nobody knew what was happening to me. And they tend to kind of tell, well, that's psychological. No, it's your body. It's psychological. It's your body. And since I'm a dancer, I found my way through what was happening to me with more somatic approaches before getting into psychotherapy. So I can say that being here and talking about this, it's really rooted in my own experience of suffering and seeing that the way to accept this chronic disease that I have and find a flexible way to deal with it. And it opened me like a new world doing that. Came from a more somatic perspective at the beginning. So I'm very interested in what is happening with psychology. When I train people, it's like we're talking and there's a mind there, but we usually don't pay much attention to the embodied aspect of our clients and our own, even though that probably they are having a conversation too. Both bodies are having a conversation too.
Well, I know certainly when I was being trained, we didn't talk about the body. It was all cognitions. It was all, and I was trained in ACT from the very beginning. And it was all the thoughts. We talked about feelings, obviously, but those were mostly the stories we had about our feelings. Yeah. There was very little attention paid to how people were feeling in their bodies or observing their bodies in the therapy session to see, I mean, maybe a little bit about if somebody's like this, obviously, okay, this is pretty hard to ignore, but very little of how body was contributing to people's suffering or people's doing well.
Mm. And I think that one of the main issues about that is that when we talk about the body, we don't clearly discriminate what we are talking about. So if we ask the audience or even both of you, when you think about your body, what comes up to your mind, it is very different for different people. Like organs, physical things, or more felt sense, or pain.
I mean, for me at my age, it's the word that comes up is betrayal. It's like, what? Come on.
Yeah.
Don't be doing that.
Yeah, but it's a great question. Like you were saying, talking about the body, very good. And we have lots of language to talk about our thoughts and feelings, with some of us more than others. But what do we mean when we say we're talking about our body? You're absolutely right. Somebody asked me to say, what is your body saying about that? That's a really hard question.
It is.
Yeah. And is that kind of what you mean when you say that was your curiosity, understanding what is our body telling us, that piece around the conversation that our body is having? Our brains are having conversations, and what is the conversation that our body is having? I love those words. And yeah, let's go there. What do we mean with those words? Help me have a conversation with my body. Help me hear what my body is
yours
saying.
And with other, there's more neuroception happening. We feel safe, and our body tells us that we are safe. From an embodied place, it doesn't go really in a thought. We all know, oh, something is happening, I'm afraid, and we have even formed an idea of that. And our body tells us when some things may happen or are happening. For trauma people, that stuff is changed due to learning history. But if we start talking with our body, one of the main things that it will tell us is you are safe or you're not. And that's an important thing. And then it will tell you a lot of other stuff, that it's not only about safeness, but it's about pain or even illness, but all in a more felt sense place, like the tone, your body tone, muscle tone, but a more general tone will tell you about your emotions, for example. So we tend to talk about emotions in therapy, but how do you discriminate which emotion do you have? Are they thoughts or are they felt sense experiences? How do you realize that you're sad, for example, or joyful?
Yes. There's so much to unpack there. To slow that down. I think for me, I wonder, is it worth, before we start to unpack it for our listeners and for me generally, because as you're talking, I'm thinking, actually, I don't have a lot of this wisdom. I don't talk to my body. I don't listen to my body that much, partly because I don't know why. I think it's something that we don't do. And I was curious about that before we start unpacking how to do it. Why has this been so neglected? Why is the body, definitely in the Western world, and I'm curious if of other cultures where it's less neglected, but this conversation about what your body is telling you or how your body is feeling, this conversation with our bodies is really neglected, except when you're really little and you're learning how to potty train. I'm thinking that's a moment where we really think about
walking.
Or walking, right?
Or
walking, or when you're small, I guess. There's a lot more conversation about how your body's doing and what it's needing. But as you get older, you stop. And maybe as you get much older, maybe you start having conversations about the body again, because it's kind of talking to you more loudly and maybe shouting at you, like you're saying, and betraying you. But yeah, it does feel like it's a missed, something that is lost.
I think about Western religions and how the body becomes the instrument of the devil. And yeah, as we're learning to walk and potty train, ride a bike, there's all this paying attention to your body. But then when kids start hitting puberty, adolescence, then there's a lot of finger wagging and a lot of don't touch that part of your body, and certainly don't touch other people's bodies. And there's a lot of shame that starts getting introduced into our bodies, whether it's doing the wrong thing with it or my body doesn't look like the societal norms. And I think a lot of stuff gets shoved under because there's just so much messaging around body.
I think we live in a Western culture in which the relationship we have with our body is conditioning in having a body, not being embodied. And that's a huge difference, because when we are little, and you, Chris, work with kids, and you, Emma, too, when you're little, your contact with the world is through your body. You put things in the world, what is happening to other people, through touching, smelling, the five senses. We live there in a more embodied way. We are living through our body. It's not something we have. But then language starts and culture starts. And then we start having a body like an object that we have, and sometimes it bothers us, or it has to be better or looking better, or it doesn't have to break nor be ill. And then we get older or we get sick, and well, the body is not functioning, and all the metaphors we start using are like the body is a machine that breaks or it doesn't, and it's a machine we have that supports our life. And even when I'm saying this, it's sad. If I think the capitalistic way we treat the body as an object that we have, instead of living life through it. And if we connect to the moments that are really meaningful for us, probably they are all not a mental idea, but an embodied experience. Like you can feel the smell, you can feel the sense in your body of a meaningful moment.
As we think about our bodies as simply a vehicle by which we move around the world, it's really quite sad. You're right, it is sad. It feels, like objects. What an incredible thing to have a body. And actually, when bodies start to have problems, we start to appreciate them more. It's when we have aches and pains, or if you can't walk for whatever reason, you start to feel grateful. But in hindsight, that it is true. It's a real loss of an experience, of an understanding, of a wisdom, isn't it? And I loved your idea, Chris, that you're right. Puberty is probably the beginning, in a way, where we start to be more judgmental. Or as we transition through puberty, I've been doing a talk about girls and how complicated puberty is for girls. Obviously, it's complicated for boys, but your body really is changing, and hormonally you're changing. Your body's changing in shapes and sizes, and suddenly you're getting attention in ways that you didn't have and you don't want, and you're not ready for. And so there's this rejection of what your body is doing, and anger, and sometimes disgust, and all those experiences towards our body. And there doesn't seem to be the right conversations and being had at that time as well, because of the soup that we live in, right? We live in the soup in the West, for sure, where you're right, it's about performance, it's about delivering, it's about being able to do whatever it is that our minds decided that we need to be doing. And sometimes gets in the way of doing that, of being successful, of looking a certain way, of playing the part. So there is a lot of judgment towards bodies, unless they do behave the ways we want them to.
Or worse, they look the way we want them to.
Yes.
So then the body is collapsed into a dimension of image, more sadness.
Well, I mean, just thinking about, as you were saying, Emma, puberty is very complicated for both boys and girls, but I think so much of this, I think it goes back to the Garden of Eden, and we're all blaming Eve for apple in enticing Adam. And we've had hundreds and hundreds of years of antipathy toward females and female power, burning witches, and manner of repression. So I'm wondering how you all reflect on that and think about that, and how that is even manifesting in our day and age. Here in the United States, we have a lot of discussion now about patriarchy and the manosphere, and we've had some episodes on this as well. So how does that play into this separation or even conflict between in the body?
A lot has been written in the feminist movement in a way in which knowledge, intuition, and other ways of knowledge that are less mindy and more embodied has been related with women, and those kind of ways of knowing, seeing the world has been suppressed with the body. So some of these writings about the split, the dualistics of mind and body as a way of dismissing more embodied wisdom, intuition associated with women, but an ecological thing. Body has been transformed into an object as the nature has been either. There's a lot of things to relate around how we dismiss the body, nature, treat them as object, and women treated as object too in a culture.
So you're talking about nature as in nature generally. So this gets into, let's clear cut that forest. Let's destroy that mountain to get the minerals underneath it.
Exactly.
Wow.
So it's interesting when you read this kind of ideas in which the way we're exploding nature, we're exploding our body, we're exploding women.
Thanks. Okay, so we have about a half an hour to solve this problem.
Well, I truly think that if we live a more embodied life, it will solve a lot of problems. Maybe you can call me idealistic, but I truly think that it's very difficult to hurt someone when you're very connected with your body. It's very difficult to hurt nature when you're very connected to your body. Yeah.
Well, it goes back to what you were saying before about safeness. And if you're not constantly in fight or flight, you're probably going to manage the world differently, the people in it and nature itself. All right. So how do we do this? How do we get there?
Yes. Let's learn to be more embodied. Can I just ask a question about the safety? Sure. You mentioned right at the beginning that your body tells you whether you're safe or not safe. What do you mean with that? How does our body tell us that?
We do have a biological circuit that does neuroception. The polyvagal circuit will tell you if you are safe or not. It is surveilling that all the time. That it's one of the things our body does. And we know it in a very concrete cues, like we get gossip, how would they call it?
Goosebumps.
Goosebumps. And you have a feeling that something wrong may happen, and your body tells you that.
But it sometimes gets that wrong. Like there is an interaction between what our minds is saying and then how our body then interprets it. So is that so when you're saying it tells you it's safe or not safe, it doesn't mean that it's accurate. It's just giving you information.
The body is accurate. The mind is not reading it.
Oh.
Well, it could be that a particular brain, because of their history, has been calibrated to pick out certain stimuli over others and perhaps overinterpret or see danger when perhaps there isn't danger. So I think that may be a factor.
Yeah, your body can be conditioned, obviously, to feel stuff and it's learning and it is trained too. Still, with this kind of conversation that Emma was about, how we talk with our body in a metaphorical way, we don't usually listen. We are fighting with it, or we don't care, or we are using it. So I do think that we can be trained to have a more fluent conversation with our body, to really feel the signals and what it's telling us, and talk to our body in some context in which we are getting anxious. And there's a way to start like that conversation. And I know that from my own experience, apart from doing this with clients, I wasn't able to talk with my body. I was so dissociated and apart from it, and it was bothering me, and it started bothering me with these symptoms in a way, and I was in a big fight with it. And I decided to start talking and listening and discriminating sensations and knowing more what was happening. And that gave me a lot of wisdom, not only about myself, but about the world either.
I'm finding this very exciting, actually. Thinking about, like, it feels like it's an enormous part of my world that I've neglected. And it sounds like you're saying, once you're embodied, it's hard to do harm to others. I'm excited. It feels really important. I need to learn how to do this. I need to learn how to talk to my body and listen to my body better. We had a great conversation with Howard Schubiner, who's just written a book called Unlearn Your Pain. So this idea that chronic pain is your body learns to feel pain, and you can unlearn to feel it because the body is telling you something is unsafe when it is actually safe. But and listeners can listen to the conversation that we had with him. He talks about your body has experiences, and it can come out as pain, but it could be that it's actually an emotional experience. It's just being expressed as a physical pain. And we neglect to see that because we don't understand the way our bodies work and the way pain works and the way our brains work in many ways too. So it just feels that that is not how I was taught to deal with chronic pain when I was trained. It was not about pain being learned or your body expressing emotions or discomfort in these physical ways. It was learning to accept your pain, not to catastrophize your pain, it's all about working with the mind, but not getting to understand and become more intimate with those sensations. It's quite the opposite, really. It was, well, there was some mindfulness, but a lot of distraction too. So let's have this conversation. Let's learn how to be more embodied.
Mindfulness can be very mindy too. the way we are doing here in Western societies. In Buddhism, the body is the first foundation for mindfulness.
It's true. Well, my mindfulness has always been very mindy, which has meant that I've mostly failed at it, as in abandoned it. Yeah, so tell us a bit more. So how would you work with someone to help them feel more embodied? I'm dying to know.
The first thing is that in therapy or outside therapy, in other context, but I have trained clients in this. And start discriminating sensations by the questions we ask, like, how are you feeling it? Which texture? I remember a client who was very disconnected with his emotions to start like having the chance to be more aware of his emotional landscape. We started a training with textures. So we were bringing different textures, and he was saying this inner feeling, this emotion is more coarse or more, and he was touching at the same moment we were doing things. It wasn't the idea of coarse, it is feeling like this, or it's feeling like this, or like this. And that means a training of noticing physical sensations and then discriminating different physical sensations. And that for him helped him discriminate different emotions, in which he was first saying, I can't feel anything. Or I even remember a client that he was feeling a pain in her skin, and it was difficult to talk about it. And when we went into it and start discriminating aspects of that pain, and if you can see, I'm even touching myself to like feeling that pain in her skin, she realized that it was sadness felt that way for her.
How did she do that? How did she come to... Wow. So she felt this physical... I mean, that's a bit of what this Howard Schubiner talks about. So
yeah.
And how did you get to sadness? I'm curious. Just through being with the body and slowing down and listening to the sensations.
Yes, exactly. And seeing in which context those sensations were present and in which they weren't, and how she felt other emotions. But first, it starts with a very sensitive way of noticing and learning to feel. And we can train and learn to feel in our body.
And I would imagine some of it involves just, to the extent possible, quieting the chatter in the mind and the narrative. Not that you can ever really get rid of that, of course, but to maybe let it go, slip into the background a little bit so you can actually hear, so to speak, what the body is trying to tell you. And that may come up as an image or something that sparks an aha moment.
Yes. On the other hand, we need to teach our clients or people on how to notice their bodies, because if I, for example, think about, or if I want to sense my hand, most of the people think about their hand or have the image of the hand, but not necessarily they're feeling their hand from the inside out in a way. And that needs training. If you touch your hand, can you feel now your hand? If you move a little bit your hand, can you feel your hand? Is there a chance to feel the temperature around it? So the hand becomes an experience, because it is an experience, that it's more than an image of it. It is more like a felt sense experience. But that needs to be trained. And we don't have a lot of context culturally to be trained in that kind of learning.
I guess because we just don't talk about it. I mean, thinking when do we ask, how does it feel How does your body feel? How does your hand feel in this moment? Where are you feeling this? Only in therapy. Nobody's going to ask you that in a conversation. That would be really odd.
Well, we're always trying to get to the solution to the problem.
Yeah.
We have a problem here. Let's get to the solution. We do that intellectually. We do that by solving problem, thinking it through, all those sorts of things. We never just sit with it for a minute.
And it's very cultural. I come from Latin America. And if you see most of our cultures, they're more embodied. We move our bodies more. We shout. We are much more expressive than other cultures.
Yes, you're right, Manuela, that when we think about Latin American or even Spanish, Italian, Mediterranean cultures, there's a lot more touching, hugging, kissing, crying, more expression of emotion through. Does that translate to talking about your body in a different way? Does it translate to thinking about the body in a different way?
The relation you have with your body is different. It's more than you live in a more free embodied place than in other countries that people are much more uptight and disconnected with their body.
You hug, you touch much more.
A lot.
Yes, you're just thinking about the body in that way more, using it to express yourself more.
Yeah, move your hands, your arms.
Yes.
Even facial expressions are
very true. Like you can probably know what is being said just by watching someone from afar in Italy or Spain or France.
Exactly.
Or you can go, oh, they're having an argument. Oh, the Greeks as well. Or not. They might just be being passionate about something.
When I train therapists, I sometimes show videos of therapeutic interaction without the sound and looking at their body dance. And people can know a lot what is happening by seeing how they are behaving in a more embodied way. They are communicating.
I'm wondering, and I do want to get back to some things that our listeners can do to reconnect to their bodies in important ways. But I'm just curious about how, since the pandemic, doing therapy over Zoom or other methods, how that's impacted the therapists being able to tune in to some of these things, or just the relationship between therapist and clients over the internet, as opposed to being in the room together where you have so many more cues that you can utilize.
There is research around that. What happened with this more virtual, only this part of our body intervening, but for human beings, eyes, tone of voice are two very important cues to know what is happening. Of course, gestures and posture, and then the felt sense, they are cues that aren't that available here, but we are adapting to them. So at the beginning, it looked like it was much more difficult to feel connected in this way. But then, as we usually do as human beings, we adapted in terms of feeling more like proximity, intimacy, all those kind of things are embodied, connected. When you feel intimate with someone, you say, and we use a lot of embodied metaphor for that. I feel you close. That's an embodied metaphor. I feel you close. I can feel your skin. There's a lot of metaphors we use that are embodied. With love, I can see my heart rate. Like my heart is pumping a lot when we feel love for someone. We use a lot of embodied metaphors when we talk.
But I'm curious about that, because although we compensate in a way, we adapt. Does it affect the quality? I remember seeing some data during COVID and post-COVID that teletherapy, I don't know what it's called anymore, but I think it's still called teletherapy, was just as effective as face-to-face. But I feel that I really struggle with teletherapy. I find it very difficult to do. I really miss a lot of information of the person in the room. I don't feel as connected, but I don't understand. I don't see the nonverbals as much. So I can't see how it is just as effective, but the data suggests that it is.
I used to have kids just get up and leave the room. When they were in my office, they were more or less contained. But when they're in their bedroom and they get an idea that they want a snack or something, they just get up and leave. And it's like, Timmy, where'd you go? But then again, you get to see the child's bedroom, and you get some good information as well about what the home life is like sometimes. But I never liked doing online therapy.
And with the advent of social media and people using online methods or online avenues to get connected, is this just going against your narrative that we need to get more embodied, right? It's actually starting to cost us. What are your thoughts? How do you feel about that we're sort of using our phones?
If you see mental health problems related to social media, it goes again in the same thesis I'm presenting. There, the body becomes an image, something we have. And the like and dislike of images, Argentina is a country with a lot of difficulties related to body image and weight and anorexia and bulimia and those kind of stuff, but a lot of anxiety and depression around being kind of, as a human being collapsed into an image of us. I think that is doing a lot of harm. And when we connect with the body, we have a more 3D dimension instead of this 2D dimension that we become in these places.
You lose a lot of context too when you're just seeing somebody's vacation on Facebook or something. You don't know what was happening 10 minutes earlier or what will happen later that evening that they didn't post, that maybe wasn't so cheerful or beautiful or whatever it may be.
And their inner landscape while they're showing that outer landscape.
Exactly, yeah. And so in the few minutes that we have left, other thoughts on how people can get started on this path of hearing their bodies more clearly?
Yeah, I would advise that first slowing down and paying more attention to the felt sense and sensations. Not only sensations related to the 5 senses, but we have 7 senses. Not only 5, we have interoception and proprioception. Interoception lets how do you feel from the inside, and let the volume where you are at in a room and the distance between different of your room and if you're lying down or up. So like tuning into the felt sense and these 7 senses, even though if at the beginning it's kind of awkward, I don't know what I'm feeling, it's okay. Having the kindness to themselves and to ourselves that this is a learning process as more and more and more that you tune in, you will learn to feel more.
Well, as you said before, there's a lot of relearning that has to happen.
Exactly.
And that takes time. It takes work.
Yeah.
And it's not linear progress either.
But it can be done with curiosity, and it's an exploration, as an adventure. An embodied life can be very ecstatic wow, a lot of things to discover, a lot of other channels in which we can know the world that we haven't tuned in. So it is not only hard work and do your work of tuning into the body, but it could be more an adventure. Why not? Like I do that. I go out into nature, and instead of only looking, I'm doing like that because I'm looking at the tree now. And instead of only looking at the tree, I touch it, I smell it, and I have to confess that sometimes I taste them. Try it out. What happens if nobody see you and you go out into the world, like touching, smelling, like letting a tree be all over you, being in touch with a tree? Try it out. Maybe the world has much more experiences that we have been tuning in. And of course, I would advise to do the same thing with another human being. With a loved one, what happens that instead of only looking at them, you can touch them, smell, feel the texture. Intimacy, it's an embodied experience.
Gosh, as you were talking, I was thinking of when you have your baby. I remember when I gave birth, I hold my baby and I remember smelling. And I still remember that smell. It smelled a little bit like bacon, but it was like, it's still the smell. It just gives me this, oh my goodness. I don't know if the smell actually, I don't know if it stimulates oxytocin. I don't know what it does, but I remember
it has to be doing something.
It's got to be doing something, because all I wanted to do was keep smelling my baby like an animal. And I didn't, nobody told me to smell your baby. Nobody said, right now you smell your baby. I remember they put my son, because my first was my son, and then all three of them. And the first thing I did was smell him and hold him and touch him. And he was full of this vernix and it was really messy. But there was something very visceral about that. And I noticed that you do that with your children. You touch them, you smell them, you hold them. In fact, when I miss my children, I feel pain in my arms because I feel like I should be holding. Like I feel this physical ache. But you don't, as adults, you don't do that. I don't know how someone would feel if I went and smelt them.
I do. I have a 20-year-old son now, and I can tell that he's at home because of his smell.
Oh, of course.
Still.
Yeah. I love that.
Here you are.
Yeah.
But the thing is to start tuning into that information channel that we don't. And to tune, you need to slow down and pay attention and then start noticing. What do I notice here? What's the smell landscape here now?
I love the idea of an adventure. Yeah, me too. I'm really
taken with the idea of the three-dimensionality of just, because we're always focused straight ahead, but to be aware of the room behind me, or even where I am in my house in relation to the upstairs and, the front and the back. And
you can feel that. You have
you can actually
sense
feel
door. You have a sense door to feel that.
Yeah. I like that. So true.
And you can feel the presence of someone even if you don't see it.
Yes, you can. Yes. So true, isn't it?
Feel that.
Yeah, you can.
I like it.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well,
let's get practicing.
This has been fabulous.
Yeah, it really has. Thank you. I'm not sure about the tasting the trees.
No.
Just in case. Just in case.
Don't do it. You can get poisoned.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't have enough knowledge not to get poisoned, but yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
But it's a completely different experience. Flowers, tasting flowers, why not?
Yeah, that seems more palatable.
Right. Manuela, thank you very much. We'll have your books in the show notes.
Thank you.
And if there's anything that you're aware of in terms of resources or cool articles,
yes,
send us those links and we'll put those in the show notes to guide people in exploring this further.
Yes, I will send something about how interoception is very important for mental health.
Cool.
And it's a transdiagnosis process to work. Then I will probably send some articles around what happened with pandemia and embodied way of doing therapy. And yeah, if I come across another resource, I definitely will share it.
I was just thinking, is there like a beginner's guide to embodiment? Like where to start?
Not that I do have, but there are a lot of it around somatic work. Yes.
Yeah. If you have any links to that, I think that could be pretty cool. We had a previous guest who talked about horror movies, and she had her startup kit, didn't she, of how to get started to watching horror movies. I thought that was pretty fun. So where do we start? Where do we begin if there's anything?
Yeah, I will send the link to a book that it is an embodiment training called Utony. It's not very well known, but I have been doing that 30 years now. So
yes, that would be amazing.
I'm going to get into that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, my body and I need to have a conversation.
A conversation.
Yeah, stop doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Wonderful.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.